Our story today is called The River to Freedom. Suddenly, the crocodile turned and swam away. It was not Matthew's first lucky escape or his last. The big African sun was low in the sky and the Nile River moved slowly and quietly through the wide land. Matthew's clothes felt cold against his skin in the water. He floated silently, listening carefully for soldiers' voices. "They will kill me if they find me," he thought. He stayed carefully by the long grass at the side of the river. Matthew's body hurt and he was hungry and very weak. He wanted to swim quickly to safer water, but he did not move. Soldiers can easily hear the sound of a man swimming on a quiet evening. Matthew looked slowly around the dark river straight into the narrow, yellow eyes of a crocodile. The large, dangerous animal began swimming quickly toward him. What could he do? "I'm a dead man," he thought. As the animal came closer, Matthew looked deep into its cold eyes. He prepared for a painful death. Suddenly, the crocodile turned and swam away. It was not Matthew's first lucky escape, or his last. 6 months earlier, Matthew was enjoying a quiet evening with his father. They were sitting outside their home in the south of Sudan, talking happily. Suddenly, soldiers arrived in the quiet streets near them. "We didn't say anything," he remembers. "We waited for a question, but there was no question. They came and shot my father. I couldn't believe that my father was shot." Matthew wanted to destroy his father's murderers immediately. Moving quickly toward the soldiers, he tried to take a gun. But he was one man against many. He was caught and taken to an army prison. He was one more prisoner in Sudan's long war. Matthew's room in prison was too small for a bed. It was even too low to stand up in. It was a painful and difficult life. But Matthew stayed in this dark box for 6 months. Every day the soldiers hit the prisoners. Matthew's body was weak and broken, but his mind and heart were still strong. One day the prison guards decided to move some of the prisoners. Did they want to kill them? Or was Matthew's luck changing at last? As he walked slowly and painfully in the bright sun, Matthew noticed something like an ugly, gray stream. It was cut straight and deep into the earth. Dirty water ran through it from the prison buildings, through the yard, and under the prison wall. "I asked a guard where the water went," Matthew remembers. "It ran into the Nile." Matthew's hope grew stronger. But the guard knew what Matthew was thinking. "Don't try to go there," he said. "You're already a dead man." The guard described the powerful electricity lines that crossed the water near the prison walls. "If you touch those lines," he continued, "you will die." Matthew's hope was almost destroyed. His life in prison was terrible, his father was dead, and his body was weak. Then he looked at the other broken men around him. He knew that he had to try. At around 5:30 p.m. the smell of food floated from the prison kitchen in the warm evening air. As the line of prisoners walked across the yard for their small, tasteless meals, Matthew stayed near the back. Then he suddenly turned away from the other prisoners and jumped quickly into the gray water. Matthew's eyes closed, and now he remembers nothing about that time. His weak body was carried by the water under the electricity lines, and from one type or danger to another. When he woke up at the side of the river, his head and leg hurt badly. He was lucky to be alive. But he was not safe yet. He had to leave Sudan to save his life. For days he floated without sleep or food. But as Matthew's courage carried him north, it also carried him away from his painful past. It is difficult to leave your country, your friends, and your family. But Matthew had a plan. He knew some people in Port Sudan, on Sudan's east coast. I have to find my friends before the soldiers find me, Matthew realized. There was no time to rest. He left the river, turned east, and started walking. For 3.5 months he traveled overland, keeping away from people and towns. Every day he felt hungry and lonely. But he bravely fought his fears and feelings. Tired and weak, Matthew arrived in busy Port Sudan. He wanted to stay with his friends in the city. But that was dangerous for all of them. He had to leave. He found a ship and said goodbye to his friends and his country. It was a brave step toward an unknown future. But Matthew was a strong man. He knew how to find the courage for each new problem. He was full of hope for the future. Today Matthew, not his real name, lives happily in Sofia, Bulgaria. His new European friends know him as a big, tall man. But his true strength is much greater than the eye can see.